ReconAthlete.com podcast is brought to you by Lawnman ATX and Kreitz Market. ReconAthlete.com podcast, episode number 22. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez. Shout out to Zach Lucero. We think he's still sick, right?
Yeah, I think so. I tried to hit him up on that messenger, see how he's feeling.
He didn't get that flu shot, man.
Man, I don't take flu shots for nothing.
Yeah.
I just don't trust it.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm a little cynical like that, but I don't care.
Is that because we're Mexican?
No, I think it's just because we're educated.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't trust. I understand the way. I took a little bio course in college about the way they produce vaccines, and I know most of them are all synthesized now, but they basically just clone or produce what the virus looks like, so it can like put it into your body. And that sometimes back in the day, probably they put in the real virus that was just dead. It just remained. It had its structure so that your body could identify it. I don't want to put anything in my system. And
that's what I've always heard. I've always heard that they actually give you the flu.
I don't want to say they give you the flu, but they give you the structure of the virus, but it's just like it's innate. So it's like it's just dead. But the structure of the virus, I know it's kind of hard to talk about over the radio. I'm sorry, over the podcast without some kind of visualization. Maybe we'll throw up a graphic. You can see what it looked like.
Dr. Paul Rodriguez.
No, I am not a medical professional.
Yeah, we did not stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night.
But get at us.
Yeah, I mean, me neither, dude. So shout out to Manor ISD because they were giving out free flu shots.
And that's great. If you're into it and you believe in it and you think it's functional, that's great. I just don't. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know. And sorry, Mom, sorry, Dad, because my mom's gonna listen to this podcast. She's gonna be like, "Mijo, you need to get a flu shot." I'm like,
she's gonna tell me. She's gonna tell you to tell me to get one too.
I'm definitely gonna get a text message. Shout out to Mom and Pops down in Buda. All right, 13-6A is crazy. Yes, everything else, high school football, by the way, everything else is kind of locked down. When we're looking at the standings, you can go to ReconAthlete.com. You can get all the latest standings for all of the Austin area high school football. And looking at 13-6A, we got, of course, Vandergrift sitting at 7-0. The big win last night over Leander. Cedar, Vista Ridge 5-2. Stony Point getting the win over Westwood last night, sitting at 5-2. Stony Point 45, Westwood 28. That's getting Stony Point in. They're at 5 wins.
Yep.
So things are starting to shake out a little bit. We got 13 in 13-6A. Last week we had 2 teams, Vandergrift and Vista Ridge, in the playoffs. Now we've got 3 with Stony Point reaching 5 wins last night. They're now 5-2. And then we've got Round Rock, we got Cedar Ridge, we got Westwood, all possibly reaching 4 wins next week. Round Rock and Cedar Ridge already have 4 wins. Cedar Ridge and Westwood will play each other next week. And Round Rock plays, and I just had it, and I can't believe I just
Vista Ridge.
Yeah, Round Rock and Vista Ridge. That's right. So Round Rock has got the tiebreaker over Westwood. 67-21 was a big win. We don't know exactly what the number is as far as the tiebreakers go. We're going to assume maybe 14.
Yeah. How about UIL? Can we get that standardized? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, because for some reason all the districts make up their own. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's a lot of districts in this state.
Right. Cedar Ridge beat Round Rock 58-47. And then, of course, we've got Westwood and Cedar Ridge next week. So I think mathematically, we're trying to look at it. I think mathematically, Westwood might have a shot, but I don't think there's not much of a shot at this point. They really needed to beat Stony Point last night to give themselves a really, really good shot at it. And right now, I think Round Rock's probably the best. The one team that's sitting the prettiest right now because they have the big win over Westwood 67-21. Cedar Ridge winning last week 58-47 in the wind tunnel. That was week 8. So I think right now it's kind of shaken out as far as 13-6A goes. And basically we're just kind of looking at see what Round Rock does against Vista Ridge and see what Cedar Ridge and Westwood, what happens next week.
Yeah, even if Round Rock loses against Vista Ridge, they're probably still in. But if they get the W, then they're locked up, and they know that. I mean, they had a really difficult loss this past week or on Thursday, but I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, Cedar Ridge with a 38-21 win over McNeil last night. I did go to the first half of that game. Shout out to McNeil Mavericks. I've watched them kind of progressively through the season. Not every single game, but this is the third game of theirs I've been to, and I can say without a doubt they have improved since the first game I saw them play to last night, especially defensively. Of course, we had Kevin McKinley, defensive coordinator with McNeil Mavericks, on the pod last week. You can check that out at reconathlete.com. We've got some clips, so you can check us out on Twitter as well. And and they did pretty good. They, Cedar Ridge scored 38 points, but that's what Cedar Ridge does. First half of this game, they couldn't get anything moving on the offensive side of the ball. Luke Hutchison, quarterback for McNeil, sophomore, super soft. You can tell he's gotten a lot better. They, especially, Coach McMahon has given him a little bit more of a leash as far as the passing game goes. So he's improved in his passing game. His big brother Will is running the football really well. But defensively, I think. We talked to Coach McKinley last week, like I said, and they were talking about wrapping up Deuce.
Yeah.
Wrapping up and waiting for the other guys to get there, and that's exactly what they were doing last night. Deuce Vaughn, in the first half of this football game, McNeil did a really good job on him. They really, really did. That kid is so elusive. I mean, there's sometimes when you think he's down, he's not down. He's not down. He's not down. And so shout out to the McNeil Mavericks. They're now 3-6, 2-5 in the in district, out of the playoff hunt at this point. But I think they've definitely got some building blocks, for next year. And you never know. You don't know how things are going to shake out as far as the districts go in February.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how that comes, especially when everything gets redistrict, like you said, when they redraw all the lines. But also, you don't know who's going to be coming into the school. You don't know if somebody may transfer in. You don't know if somebody, just moves here from another state, like we always often see. So there's always next year. I know that's very cliche to say, but gosh, dog, I mean, you're going to have a super sophomore come back at quarterback. So we're excited to see what McNeil does in 2020.
Yeah, they're definitely going to. We do know that they're going to have a new head football coach. Coach McMahon is going to move on to be assistant AD there at Round Rock ISD. A very well-deserved position. And I know that, moving on to a position like that is going to do wonders for his career, but I think also probably for his stress level.
Yeah, I believe that. Definitely. Being a head coach at any large school in the Austin area is extremely stressful.
Yeah, so I think, and from the grapevine, what I've heard is they kind of want to get this transition done before probably and in my opinion, this is a good timeline, probably before the Christmas break.
Yeah, I
mean, because you got your Christmas break, you got 2 weeks off. You want to come back and just right away start your off-season program.
And that's exactly when, the off-season really gets kicked off, is right before the Christmas holiday break. But, after this season, everybody's going to be just transitioning, getting equipment cleaned up, getting everything put away, and getting ready for the next phase of the football season of 2020, because this is a year-round sport, ladies and gentlemen. It never stops. Right.
So shout out to the McNeil Mavericks. Great season. And I think they've got Hendrickson next week. So that's going to be a good football game to end the season on for both the Hawks and the Mavs. All right, 25-6A. We got Lake Travis Westlake already in the playoffs. Hayes at 5-2. They're in.
Yeah, they're in.
They're in.
Yeah.
Anderson and Bowie both at 4-3. Anderson has the tiebreaker over the Bulldogs. Del Valley at 3-4, and then we got Austin, Aikens, and then Lehman and Bowie or Del Valley. Any chance for them to get in? And not. We'll have to look. We'll have to look and see if there's. I know they did not win against the Bowie Bulldogs. So you got that in front of you there, Paul?
I'm looking at right now. I'm not trying to see who Bowie has next week. No, they're playing Westlake next week. I'm going to go ahead and get a look at who Del Valley plays. I'm kind of looking for that.
25-6A Del Valle. Let's shout out to Fanstan ATX. FanstanATX.com is what I'm at right now. They are at Hayes.
So that'll be a very interesting game next week to finish up the season. If Hayes gets the W,
that gets them to 6 wins.
Gets them kicked out. That gets Del Valle kicked out. But gosh, if Del Valle can pull what I'm going to call an upset, and I understand everybody will Hayes lost back to back. It's like, yeah, well, they played Westlake and Lake Travis, so we understand why they have the 2 losses on the season.
Yeah, and Del Valle lost to Bowie 38-21, and they lost to Anderson 20-17. So
that's probably going to have them out either way.
Yeah, either way they're probably going to be out. But it's going to be one of those games that they're going to want to end the 2019 season in a positive manner. Shout out to Bird. He's calling me right now. What up, Bird? So
he calls a lot when I'm here.
He does. He calls every Saturday morning.
Right on.
All right, so looking at the Taco Shack scoreboard, let me get back over there. In 25-6A, last night we had Westlake beating Anderson 49-7, Bowie with a 42-14 win over Lehman, Lake Travis 59, Hayes 27, and also Austin High beating Aikens 41-30. And shout out to the Maroons. Ending the season, pretty good. They got a 2-game win streak, and that was their last game of the season for the Austin High Maroons. They have a bye next week.
Yep.
Rough season, but I think ending it with big wins over Bowie and Aikens, that's very positive rolling into 2020. And from my understanding, I think this might be Coach Rosenthal's last season as well.
Great win for Austin High. I was watching that game. It was kind of tight early in the first quarter, 8-7. I think Charles Wright and Austin High and crew kind of just took off after that and got the ball rolling. But it again, if it is Coach Rowe, if it is his last season, what a way to go ahead and leave the Austin High Maroons. As they're transitioning, I'm starting to see on social media they're getting very active with their booster club. Mm-hmm. They're starting to spend some money. They revamped their athletic facilities last year, so I think they're starting to put some money into their program, like they see these other schools who are being successful, Vandergrift to note, and of course the Lake schools. Yeah,
and and shout out to the Rush family, old high school friends of mine, Brock Rush and his wife Allison, and they got their son over there right now, and they moved into San Antonio. We talked a little bit earlier about kids moving in, and
yep.
They moved in from San Antonio. They're very highly involved with the booster club there at Austin High, and I talked to Brock at the beginning of the season. He was like, "Man, I want to put the Maroons on the big stage." He's like, "I want to make them, a big deal around here." I was like, "All right, yeah, you can if you do that. Especially if you get involved with the booster club." So. Shout out to the Rush family and Austin High. They got still got another year with Charles Wright at the helm.
I'm excited to see that senior campaign. We'll be able to see more also from them when the off season comes. But the 7-on-7 tournament, I think that's where things get rolling really big over the summertime, and see how they progress as a unit. See if maybe some stars emerge out of the receiving corps.
Yeah, and that's definitely what's gonna need to happen for the Austin High Maroons to progress and grow as a football team, especially offensively. They have the quarterback, and I've heard, I'm not going to say who, but I've heard other people be like, "Man, Charles Wright should transfer." I'm like,
yeah, it was me.
Yeah, that was you.
It was me. That's who if y'all want to know who it was, I was the one who said it.
Yeah, shout out Paul Rodriguez. What's your Twitter for anybody that wants to complain to you?
Prod_Recon.
Yeah, at Prod_Recon if you want to complain about that. District 11-5A Division 1, we got Cedar Park at 5-0, Hutto 4-1, Georgetown 3-2, Manor 3-2. This district is all wrapped up as far as the playoff teams go. Rouse 1-4, Conley 1-4, and then the Pflugerville Panthers sitting at 1-5. Of course, Cedar Park beat Pflugerville last night, 42-21. Hutto 42-20 winners over Manor in 11-5A Division 1. I always have to remember to say the divisions when it comes to the 5A schools. And then look at this other one, Cedar Park, Manor, Hutto, and then I think it was a Thursday night game. Oh yeah, Georgetown over Rouse. So Georgetown, big win over Rouse, got them into the playoffs. Shout out to the Eagles, #EFND. So basically, I mean, at this point, Paul, for 11-5A Division I, you know who's going to be in the playoffs. As a coach, put your coaching hat on right now.
No, it's there.
Mr. Paul Rodriguez, what do you do next week as far as your starters go?
They play the first half, and then they sit. And the reason why is, in my opinion, you want to have these guys game ready. And so they have this muscle memory for every Friday night or Thursday night, depending on the schedules. And I understand sometimes they're scheduled on Saturday, but you want to have them in that game atmosphere. You don't want to have them sit and then they go into by district and they're rusty and they get a slow start. And if you get behind in some of these offenses, you're not built to come from behind. And so you want to make sure that the young men are not thinking anymore. They're just reacting, playing the game the way it should be played, and getting off to a very fast starts. If you have injuries, maybe you don't play that starter if you have some injuries that you don't want anybody to know about. But I would at least have them out there dressed and warming up and being part of the team, and cheering on some of those seniors who are getting the opportunity to play. And you'll probably see a lot of seniors playing at the last game, especially probably in that fourth quarter, most likely.
That's a really good point, Paul, because, you're going to get into the playoffs the following week. So, like you said, if you got some seniors out there, you want to get them some playing time. And I think this is a good opportunity for all the schools in 11-5A Division I, being Cedar Park, Hutto, Georgetown, Manor, and then even Rouse, Conley, and Pflugerville. I think we'll probably see a lot of seniors out there next week. And shout out to seniors of 2020. Makes me feel really old to say that. 12-5A Division I, Dripping Springs 6-0, LBJ 5-1, Seguin 5-1. So those three teams are in for sure. The only kind of question mark is who that fourth spot is. But McCallum has Crockett, I believe, or no, Travis next week. They beat Crockett 56-6 this week on Halloween night on Thursday. So a win for the McCallum Knights will get them into the playoffs. Which, with the type of season that they've had this year, not up to the standard that the McCallum Knights are used to. They're sitting at 4-5 overall, 3-3 in the district. But if you make it the playoffs, you're 0-0 at that point. So, shout out to the Knights.
It was a really tough year for McCallum to start off, especially in that Taco Shack Bowl with their quarterback going down in the first few drives of the game. But for them to rebound the way they have this year and getting off to possibly a by-district playoff berth, I think speaks volumes for the young men to go ahead and continue to move forward and try to get a victory, possibly just depending on how they match up. But gosh, dog, it's going to be tough whoever they play in that district, 11-5A and by-district.
Yeah. 13-5A Division II, we got Weiss at 6-0. Shout out to the Weiss Wolves, 8-1.
Getting it, bro.
8-1. They were winless last year.
They didn't win a game last year.
And they were over.
For real.
And now they're sitting at 8-1 in the district.
About to take the district title.
About to take the district title. Brenham's at 5-1. Glenn at 4-2. Eastview at 3-3. So I think Eastview and then Bastrop and Cedar Creek are both at 2-4. Eastview with the win over Cedar Creek last night, I believe. Let me take this Taco Shack scoreboard. Yes, 21-14. Eastview with the win over Cedar Creek last night in 13-5A Division II. And then the last, they are at Elgin coming up next Friday. So also last night, Bastrop with a 30-20 win over Elgin. And 13-5A Division II. I'm looking for the scores. I think there was one Thursday night. So Casey Johns, put those Thursday scores on the Taco Shack scoreboard, bro. Shout out to Casey though. So I think the only question right now, I don't think there is a question.
I think Eastview's in.
Eastview's, yeah, because they beat Cedar Creek, they beat Bastrop as well.
Right, they beat Bastrop as well, and even if they take the L against Elgin in the final game, they're still in with the tiebreakers. All
right, 14-5A Division II, we got Tybee sitting at 6-0, Champion 5-1, Medina Valley 4-2, and then Lockhart and Alamo Heights both at 3-3. Uvalde at 2-4, San Antonio Memorial and Kennedy 1-5 and 0-6. So as far as I know, Lockhart has the tiebreaker over Medina Valley, but they lost to Alamo Heights.
Right.
So we're gonna have to see what happens next week. Alamo Heights will probably have to lose. Just from looking at the at the standings right now here on ReconAthlete.com. And that if an Alamo Heights loss and a Lockhart win.
So Alamo Heights lost last night to Medina Valley. That's why that tiebreaker looks like the way it does. But next week Alamo Heights takes on Champion, and that's probably, if I had to do a pick 'em, I'm taking Bernie over that just because I saw them play against Lockhart. But goodness gracious, Lockhart plays Uvalde next week at home. We'll have King Kalunga at that game, definitely. Mm. We got a live call in, Zach Lucero.
Oh, let's go, Zach. When on?
What's up?
What's going on, bro?
How y'all doing?
Good,
How's
man.
the show going?
It's going great, man. Thanks for calling in. You that was great, impeccable timing there.
I could sense it.
Your spidey senses or what?
Jedi sense or what?
Yeah.
Did you go to the game? Did Vandergrift play last night? Dude, I'm kind of out of it right now. Yeah, they played 56-3 win over Lander. Did you go to that game? Because we know you're sick.
Yeah, well, my other employer doesn't let me call in, so I was coughing up alone on the
sideline. But you were there, huh?
Yeah, I was there. I mean, it really wasn't much to talk about in that game. That was a game that, like, it's cool. It's cool to be at. Like, it's cool to like see happen, just because you get to see a lot of the people that don't play very much, the seniors, the kids that don't necessarily get the kind of opportunities that some of the other kids get, but still put in all the work. Get to see them like get in the game, and I think the final stat was 7 different Vipers scored for Vandergrift in that game. So it's just a cool way to see how Coach Mauser and Coach Sanders are able to get guys in, and not only get them in, but get them opportunities to like make significant plays and stuff like that. So it was a cool game to be at. But as far as like takeaways from the game, as far as like a playoff standpoint, or like or even like when it comes to next week's matchup against Stony Point, it really wasn't much you could take away.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting. Before you called in, Zach, Paul and I were talking about, the, I guess, approach for next week. As far as a lot of these teams have, already locked up their playoff standings, and we'll see a lot of seniors like you saw, last night against Leander for Vandergrift. But the interesting thing for the Vandergrift Vipers right now, though, is they're sitting at 9-0. You kind of want to make sure you get that win, and with Stony Point, I don't know if there's a whole lot of room to play a lot of second and third stringers if you want to get that 10-0. So I mean, what's your prediction as far as how Coach Sanders approaches this game next week against the Tigers?
Yeah, I think the way it kind of shook down last year, them getting an undefeated season, like that was something that was really important to them. Mm-hmm. So I think above all, Coach Cedar wants to get the win. Like it doesn't matter what the win means. Mm-hmm. He wants to get the win. Any game that's in front of him, he's going to try to win it, no matter what that game is. So I think, and also I think for Vandergrift, with all the injuries they've had, they're still trying to figure out how things are going to go. Like they're still trying to figure out their team going in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they have the liberties of resting all the guys that they know are starters and picking up their offense right where they left it in the first round of the playoffs. They don't really have that liberty anymore with all the injuries that they've suffered. So I would see, like I would forecast that this game next week against Stony Point is just going to be treated like it was a mid-year game against the tough Stony Point team.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I think just knowing Coach Sanders, and like you said, he's approaching this game like he wants to win it. I mean, obviously, you want to go 10-0. I mean, that's a big deal to go 2 seasons in a row with an O after a 10. I mean, that's huge. So I'd have to agree with you, Zach. I think they're still going to approach this game against Stony Point like it's any other, and try to get this win. And I think as far as Stony Point goes, they're going to want to knock off the champs. They're going to want to go into the off season and playoffs, playoffs for them with a win. So I think Vandergrift Stony Point next week is all of a sudden a pretty interesting game, even though it really doesn't have a whole lot of implications as far as playoffs go, Paul.
it'll be really interesting to see if Drew Sanders just releases the hounds against Stony Point. But I think Stony Point wants to play spoiler and ruin that Vandy perf and kind of take that away. If that happens, I think that'll be really pivotal. But I don't think it's going to negatively affect the Vipers going into the playoffs at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So shout out to Vandegrift, and that'll hold on, Flatonia.
Yeah, Flatonia. They had a bye this week, and they were kind of. I was talking to Chris Becker, lineman ATX, and he was saying they were going to try to go to that Hayes Lake Travis games. I'm not really sure if that ended up happening, but next week I'm going to go ahead and try to identify who they're playing next week. They're playing at Louise Hornets at Hornet Stadium, 7:30 kick next week for the wrap up. But they've already locked up the district crown in 14. 2A Division II, so they're just still getting locked up and they're trying to get ready and primed for playoffs, which we will be going to. I'm not sure if we're going to do a collective Recon road trip, but we'll see what happens further down the road.
Yeah, what do you think, Zach? I mean, you're gonna be busy, dude.
You're gonna be busy with the
hopefully, you're gonna be busy until December, right, Zach?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully. As long as I get to ride the Dandy train, it's a pleasure to be on board.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up our high school football. Zach, do you want to stay on the line for our NFL, or you ready to go? It's up
we
to
cut
you.
the part out, but y'all already talked to the NCAA stuff that I was supposed to call in last time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did the NCAA stuff. Let's get Zach Luceros to take on there. And Paul, why don't you kind of give our listeners, the ones that didn't catch the other podcast, a little bit of an intro for this before Zach gives us his take.
Right. So refresher back, we're talking about how the NCAA has ruled in favor of the athletes to allow them to make a little bit of money off of their name and likeness. And what this will allow them to do is it won't be implemented anytime soon, but it's going to go ahead and let them, make money off of commercial, make money off of autographs, make money, possibly off of EA Sports, NCAA, whatever. I hope they bring that back. But Zach, my biggest point was this was a fair thing to do in the eyes of the athletes, and it's about time that these individuals who are in leadership positions and positions of authority to do the right thing, do the moral thing, and allow these individuals to make money when the governing bodies at B are making hundreds of millions, if not close to billions of dollars. What are your thoughts about that topic?
Yeah, I think Recon. I think first of all, Recon podcast is a company that's for the athletes. So I think we're all three of us have all been on the way of thought that we all agree that athletes should be compensated for their time, should be compensated for their efforts, and should be compensated for the funds that they bring into the university. So I definitely agree with that. Unlike Tim Tebow, I agree that the athletes should be making a little bit of something. Yeah. But my questions that I wanted to bring up to you guys is I wonder how this affects the recruiting aspect. Not only I have two questions. Not only in the aspect of like the really big schools, because if Paul is a 5-star offensive lineman from Minnesota, let's say, and he grew up a Minnesota Gophers fan. He went to all the games. His parents had season tickets, but his family, like the season tickets, were like passed down from generation. His family isn't doing too well. He just he got to be the size he is just off of eating beans and rice, something like that.
Yeah.
And so what to say? Like, do you think we see less kids like that? Which we do see kids, these high profile athletes go to smaller schools. They do stay home. We see that in basketball a lot. We do see these big name guys stay to their local school or stay to the school that they really do feel is the best fit for them. Do you think we see less of that and more of like, because it would make more sense for Paul to go to like a USC or a Texas or somewhere where there's just more financial opportunity now that they have this rule passed. What do y'all think about that?
I think the biggest thing you want to take away from this is that the university isn't paying the individual. It's more of the individual's a free agent and make money wherever they choose and wherever they see fit. Now, in regards to taking that question, would we see more of that? And I don't think so. I think what we were going to see is kids who have to have the opportunity to play at a more high-profile school. And so I think to your point, yeah, we may see more, we may see less, but I think at the end of the day, what we really want to know is will the student athlete be compensated fairly and ethically? I hope so. And I'm trying to answer your question very diplomatically because I don't want to say anything.
Why do you want to do that?
Because we're all here about tepid takes, right? That's what we do.
No, we're not about tepid takes, dude. Don't be diplomatic right now.
So
tell us what you.
Because I think you're right. I think you're right, Paul, and like I definitely do believe it. It's not compensated by the school; it's compensated by whoever was willing to pay the kid.
Right.
And you're going to have more places if you're playing at Stanford next to Silicon Valley. You're going to have more opportunity if you're playing in Central Texas and Austin. You're going to have more opportunity if you're playing for UCLA in Los Angeles, California, than you are if you stay home and you grew up a Red Raider fan and you're playing in Lubbock. Or you're like the question stated, if you're from Minnesota and staying in Minnesota, because if it was you're getting paid from the school, I think you'd see just as much opportunity for that 5-star to stay at the school that he wanted, because that school wants that kid to come there. There's not as much financial opportunity in the boosters and the surroundings at some of these lesser big schools, and as there are at like the UCLAs or the USCs or the Texases.
The biggest thing I see taken away from this, and it just kind of came to me as an epiphany, is that the communities, I think, are going to collectively bring in their resources. So like if the example that you just stated about Minnesota, I think that community and maybe even that state, because they don't have that many large schools, are going to pull resources and maybe form super PACs, maybe similar to they do in like, political campaigns, and they just pull in all this money from just everybody around the community to combat the larger markets in the United States that these other schools are going to have as an asset. And I think that would be the best way to combat that. So if that's something that the athlete has a lot of pride for his community and wants to stay home, maybe that's a solution. But I do agree that it's going to be extremely difficult for a small town, small state, small market student athlete who has ambition and who, of course, is extremely disciplined at being a high-level athlete. They're probably going to want to go for the glitz and the fame, because we really all like that. And especially with today's student athlete, it's all about the recognition and instant recognition. So I will probably see the advantage for these larger market universities to take and utilize that resource because of the popularity of wherever they are. If that's Austin, if that's Palo Alto, if that's New York, or if that's Florida and Miami or Los Angeles, I really think you're going to see more of how the recruiting was going on, probably like in the 80s, where they just sandbag players on their rosters to kind of keep them from the other smaller schools. And that'll be interesting to see going forward how that plays out.
Chris?
I think there's going to be plenty of Buddy Garrity's, like those.
Buddy Garrity.
Yeah, Buddy Garrity from Friday Night Lights. The guy that owned the
the dealership.
The dealership.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of Buddy Garrity's around in a lot of those small schools. And it's going to be like you said, they're going to get together. It's going to be like, hey, we're going to pull our money together, and we're going to make sure that we have enough of quote unquote sponsorships to go around for these kids, to get them to come to Des Moines, Iowa, or Manhattan, Kansas.
So are you saying there's
Tulsa, Oklahoma?
So are you saying there's going to be a gold Trans Am showing up in Sealy, Texas, like what they did with Eric Dickerson? Is that what you're saying?
You never know. And what I'm saying is there's going to be those dealership, realtor, Mattress Mac tile, type of business owners in these communities. They probably went to that school, and they're going to want to compete with the big schools, and they're going to pull their money together, like you said, like a super PAC in the political campaign. That's a great metaphor to bring about, Paul, because I think that's the only way for some of these smaller communities and smaller schools, and especially the college towns, to compete with the big boys. So that's going to be an issue, I think, as far as trying to get some recruits because, Zach, I think you're right. It's going to be it's going to be an advantage for, maybe USC or, Texas.
Because at the end of the day, what we're seeing the most with the prevalence of this, talk about being paid, is these kids are trying to help their families out.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are saying that, I'm getting my stipend check and sending all of it to my single mother at home who's raising all three of my brothers or whatever, and then I'm eating scraps on campus, but at least my mom has a little bit of money. Because I mean, if that's the case, then you're going to want to do whatever's going to bring in the most money for you, and maybe that is moving to UCLA. But my other point, Chris, you were talking about the small schools. Is what if we get really, really small? Do you think this affects the FCS, the military academy schools? Because so if you're holding a football camp and you're not going to get the Sam Ellinger, you're not going to get the Devin Duvernay, you're not going to get these big guys, you just want to get guys that you can say Longhorn football player blank is going to be at my camp, and that's going to help the notoriety of your camp. So, and do you think we see less people go to the real small schools, go to the military academies, go to the Incarnate Word, and walk on at big-time universities because they have the opportunity to say, I played football at the University of Texas.
And have that opportunity to sell their likeness. Yeah. Now, and that's a great point. And, one of the things that we talked about the other day, Zach, when, you had the vapor rub on your feet and you couldn't call in for us. But I think what they're trying to do right now is allow the different divisions like Division I, Division II, Division III to come up with their own rules and just kind of have different standards for Division I, Division II, Division III. But I think, what you're talking about, Zach, I think that kind of goes around any kind of rules or any kind of standards that each of these divisions might set up for themselves. Because I think you're right, Zach. I think, you might have a little bit more marketability if you're a walk-on at the University of Texas rather than being, a kid over at the University Incarnate Word or UTSA or Texas State, for example. You might have a little bit more marketability, and if you're coming from, a lower socioeconomic path, you're trying to make that bank. I mean, right. You're trying to help mom and dad, or you're trying to help mom or whatever. That window of opportunity becomes a little bit smaller if you're in San Marcos as opposed to being in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point, Chris. And I think we should wrap on this. I think this is a big pivotal moment in history right now. And it's so polarizing, Zach, that everybody's kind of not talking about it. Only we're talking about it that I've been able to see. And I'm really curious to know, how these governing bodies are going to do or implement this. And we kind of talked a little bit about it. We talked about the tax implications and how, these young men and young ladies need to be prepared for that obligation when it does come. But Zach, I'm going to leave you with the last thought to close it out for the NCAA ruling in favor of the student athletes.
Well, I think the tax thing is a really good shout, Paul, because I'm 25 and I have a full-time job and my mom still does my taxes. So y'all have a good rest of the podcast, and hopefully I'll get better and see you guys on Wednesday.
All right, Zach. Well, appreciate you calling in, bud. And like you said, hopefully you'll get better, and we'll see you on Wednesday, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, see you guys.
All right. Shout out to Zach Lucero at Zach Ain't Whack on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
So NFL. That's not. We don't have to go. We're kind of going long here. So Cowboys and Giants. Let's talk about that. That's going to be on Monday night. Cowboys sitting at 4-3. Big win over division rivals, the Eagles, a couple weeks ago. Had the bye week. Now another division game. They have the opportunity. Anytime you can sweep a division foe, you want to do that. They got a great opportunity to go to MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, get a win, sweep the Giants for the 2019 season, and just really seal that number one spot right now in the NFC East. So this is a big opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night.
Yeah, they're still a 7-point favorite from Wednesday night, and I just wanted to look. I was kind of looking at their overall win-loss record, and a 4-4 doesn't look as good as a 5-3. Because I'm going to tell you right now that'll have so much impact for the guys there in Dallas to have the confidence going into a long stretch in November, because they play some tough teams. And when it comes to the month of November, the Patriots are sitting out there. They're probably going to play Detroit as well. So the Dallas Cowboys need this victory to continue to stay atop of the NFC East. But gosh, Danny Dimes, he could turn hot. Saquon's going to be playing. So Dallas, get ready, because this ain't just going to be a quick victory and get back to Dallas. And the weather, I think, is going to be something to be concerned about. I want to look at real quick. Sometimes they post the weather, conditions are going to be like.
Yeah, it's going to be Monday night, so it's going to be.
See it.
Monday night. It's a night game. MetLife Stadium, of course, it's not a dome.
54 degrees.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
That's cool. That's good. That's good football weather. So we'll see what the Cowboys do coming off their bye week. I know, I read a little headline somewhere where, Ezekiel Elliott was talking about, he's coming off this bye week refreshed, he was saying. So we'll see how much they say that we'll see how much that extra week does for Ezekiel Elliott and those legs and for this Cowboys offense. Texans taking on the Jaguars. Texans coming off the 27-24 win over the Raiders. Of course, they lose out on their, basically heart and soul. J.J. Watt out for the season again with a pectoral muscle strain. And, shout out to him, man. It's tough. I mean, you get older, it's tough to stay healthy. So shout out to J.J. Watt. But, speaking of the defensive fronts, Paul, you were showing me something on your phone talking about the Jags defensive front.
Yeah, I was just Calais Campbell's out there just trying to get things moving and get things impactful, because I think he's going to be the guy to stop Carlos Hyde with the Jaguars. But my other thing that I really want to see is if the Jaguars can get this victory, and my question is, does Minshew lock the door on the career of Nick Foles in Jacksonville? Is this it? Is this going to be the time where he's saying, I might as well go ship this guy somewhere off, get rid of that big contract, and I'll play for a cheap price for a couple of years, and then I'll get my money?
I mean, possibly. I mean, if I were the Jaguars, it's not like Nick Foles was going to be your franchise. At the beginning of the season, it almost seemed like he was going to be.
Well, they paid him a contract like he's a franchise quarterback because that victory over Tom Brady in the Super Bowl a couple of years made him that money.
Yeah. So, I guess, like, which franchise quarterback do you go with? Do you think Gardner Minshew, if you're the Jaguars, do you think Gardner Minshew is a guy that's going to be your franchise quarterback, for next 10 years because he's a younger guy?
Yeah.
Foles is probably more like 5. So, I think at this point it's kind of like, all right, well, what do we want to gamble on? What do we think is going to happen? Or have the best chances to happen? Is it going to be Foles for 5 years, or is it going to be Minshew for 10?
I think the safe play on this is you got to give Minshew one more year, because we saw what happened where second-year quarterbacks, once people get tape on you and they figure out your tendencies, they exploit them. Now, if Minshew can learn from the quarterbacks like, Wilson in Seattle, if he can learn from the Drew Breeses and get that second wave of your career started, I think that's where he gains the most success. But the money is still on Foles. He's got to be the one to perform. But he's healthy right now, and Minshew is just not letting him get back into the starting rotation. So that's something that I think we should need to watch. But if I was Jacksonville and I saw the pattern with the Browns and how Baker lit it up last year and this year he's down, I just don't want sophomore slumps to ship away Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback and Nick Foles for just Minshew mania right now.
Yeah, and this game right now is just pretty much it looks like a coin flip. Houston's a 1.5 point favorite at this point, so to me, it's just like, that's almost an even money line to me.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't know, -1.5. Which way would you go?
I'm rolling with Deshaun Watson. That's where I'm rolling. That's who I'm going to roll with.
Yeah, and you would take the 1.5.
Is it plus or minus Houston?
-1.5 for Houston.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, I think I would too. And that's going to be in London.
That's an 8:30. That's a Sunday night game, but it is in Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, so Sunday morning it's going to be 8:30 a.m. our time here in Central. So, and don't forget, we're falling back.
Yep.
We're gaining an hour. Thank God, because I need it.
I want to thank. I don't want to thank the Bush administration for a lot of things, but I do want to thank the Bush administration for standardizing the date that this always comes on, because it's my birthday tomorrow, and every year I can always count on that time change. And in my younger days, I would exploit that late night adventures.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how
yeah.
I used to exploit it like that.
All right, well, shout out to Paul Rodriguez, P-Rod, with the birthday coming up. Shout out to Zach Lucero for joining us on the phone line. Hopefully he can, right now he's day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I think he's questionable right now as far as Wednesday's podcast, but I think it's looking good so far for him to make an appearance back on the ReconAthlete.com podcast. What do you think, Paul?
I'm excited for Recon Athlete. I'm excited for Zach to come back a little bit, and I miss picking on the guy, so I want him to come back. Zach, we miss you, brother.
All right, shout out to Snoop Daniel as always, and FanStan ATX, of course. That's where we came from, Paul. So we always got a shout out to FanStan and Snoop, Casey Johns, and all the crew over there.
Oh, show.
Yeah, so shout out to those guys. All right, that's ReconAthlete.com podcast, episode number 22. Paul, do your thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all are enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment your favorite sport down below, and we'll check those out. And as always, click the notification bell. We gone.